Assalamu alaikum. So this comment was left on my video explaining that the Quran only references two seasons, winter and summer, and that's in the verse that says رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ, the journey of winter and summer. So to understand this, we have to be able to distinguish between physical, objective reality and the social constructs that we use to describe that reality. And that was basically my whole point in the video. I never said or wasn't saying that the idea of 4 seasons was wrong, and that there are only objectively 2 seasons. Rather, what I'm saying is that when we learn to describe something socially and culturally in one way, we think that's the only way to describe it and that we should open our minds up to other descriptions. So let's look at this in a couple different other contexts. For example, time. Let's look at the difference between how time was described, for example, in pre-Islamic Arabia versus how we think of time now. So the divisions in Arabic timekeeping are based upon the cycles of the natural light, whereas Western timekeeping rigidly divides the day into 24 hours and is further divided into minutes and seconds. And this is influenced by the scientific and industrial mindset. Now, that doesn't mean that one of them is wrong and one of them is right. It's just different ways of thinking about the same objective reality. So for example, in pre-Islamic Arabia, we would have these divisions of time. We would have al-bukur, which is early morning. We would have as-sahar, which is like the last part of the night. We would have al-fajr, which is the dawn. We would have as-subh, which is the morning time when the light becomes clearer after dawn. We would have ad-duha, which is like late morning. We would have al-dhahira, which is noon or midday. We would have al-asr, which is late afternoon. We would have al-ghurub, which is sunset. We would have al-atma, which is darkness after sunset. We would have muntasiful layl, which is midnight. And we would have as-sudfa, which is the early hours of the night just before total darkness. Now, does that mean that one of those ways of keeping time is wrong and the other is right? Or does that mean that one way of keeping time is based on objective, physical, scientific reality and the other is not? No. In both cases, the alternation of the night and the day is the same. It's the way that we describe it based upon our own regional and cultural differences that influence our verbal description of it. In a similar way, Western cultures often divide the seasons into 4. The Quran references 2. South Asia has 6 divisions: spring, summer, monsoon, autumn, pre-winter, and winter. Indigenous cultures often describe the season based upon local markers like animal migration, plant cycles, rainfall, more so than fixed months. Even when you look at something like directions, you can see the same distinction between physical objective reality and the way that we describe it. So in Western cultures, we have one way of describing big directions and one way of describing small directions. So big directions, we use the cardinal directions, north, east, south, and west. And for small directions, we use things like left and right. Some indigenous Australian cultures use an absolute directional system, meaning they don't distinguish between big directions and small directions. So for example, instead of something is on the left, they might say something is on the northwest of my body, for example. Same thing with colors. So Western cultures typically identify 7 colors, and this is based upon Isaac Newton's classification system. However, the Himba tribe in Namibia has fewer words for colors, but they perceive shades of green that we don't perceive because they have words that describe those shades of green. There are many examples like this, how the verbal description, the words that we use to describe something, influences our perception of it. It doesn't change the physical reality, like in the example of colors, right? What are colors? Colors are how we perceive the light that reflects from objects. However, that interacts with the verbal descriptions that we learn from our cultures, and that interacts with our perception of those colors and our perceptions of time and our perceptions of seasons and our perceptions of many things in the physical world. This is really a broader topic, which is how language and thought go together, that our language influences the way that we think about things. So you said you're Muslim and bro, you're wrong. So I would like to know, I asked in the comments to please explain how I'm wrong. So please explain to me how I'm wrong. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. What I'm trying to recognize and what I'm trying to share is that we shouldn't become ethnocentric, meaning we shouldn't think that because we grew up in a certain culture with a certain way of describing the physical environment and the world around us, that that is the only way to describe it. Not saying that that way is wrong. So when you describe something as 4 seasons, I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's not the only way to think about it. That doesn't change the physical reality. Rather, it changes our perception of the physical reality. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.